All right, you sick fucks. Welcome back to the deep dive. We're going head first into this Russia-Ukraine shitstorm. You want to know why Putin's been lobbing missiles at everything BUT, the goddamn battlefield? Like, seriously, kindergartens? Power plants? What the actual fuck? We've got Wikipedia excerpts detailing these attacks from 2022 to now, and let me tell you, it's a fucking roller coaster of explosions, blackouts, and international pissed offness. Luckily, we've got our expert here to break down this whole missile mayhem.
Hey everyone. Yeah, it's a total shit show over there. Putin's strategy is like something out of a Bond villain's playbook.
Okay, let's cut the crap. What the hell is the point of hitting a power plant in the middle of winter? Is this dipshit trying to freeze the Ukrainians into submission?
It's a tactic, Art, and a fucked up one. But if you look at these Wikipedia excerpts, you can see a pattern. Russia's been escalating these attacks on civilian infrastructure, trying to cripple Ukraine, disrupt their military, and basically terrorize the population into giving up. It's classic shock and awe bullshit, but on a whole new level of fucked up.
So Putin's playing a game of fuck you with the lives of innocent people. Didn't we learn anything from the Blitz in London? Terrorizing civilians just makes them more determined to fight back.
Yeah, the Blitz is a good comparison. Same goal, different century. Putin's just using 21st century weaponry to do it.
All right, let's walk through this timeline of attacks. When did this shit really start to ramp up?
Well, early on, it was more about disrupting military supply lines, hitting fuel depots, railways, that kind of thing. But then on October 10th, 2022, Putin decided to take things up a notch. They launched this massive wave of missiles across Ukraine, Kiev, Lviv, Kharkiv, Zaporizhia. Basically, nowhere was safe. That was a real turning point in the conflict.
Sounds like Putin went full-on scorched earth after that.
Pretty much. In November 2022, they knocked out almost half of Ukraine's power grid, leaving millions of people freezing their asses off in the dark. They even hit a maternity ward in a hospital. What the actual fuck?
Talk about a new low. Even for a ruthless dictator like Putin, that's some seriously fucked up shit.
And then there's the Kakhovka Dam in June 2023, a complete humanitarian and environmental disaster. Both sides blamed each other. But let's be real, it's pretty obvious who was responsible.
Putin playing the blame game. Shocker.
So is this just blind rage, or is there some twisted logic behind these attacks? Is this dude a strategic mastermind, or just a desperate asshole with his finger on the button?
That's the million-dollar question. On one hand, he's clearly trying to break Ukraine's spirit and make them surrender. But on the other hand, these attacks are uniting the world against him and making him look like a complete psychopath.
So he's achieving the opposite of what he wants. Classic Putin.
Yeah.
But let's not forget, this isn't just some regional squabble. This shit has global consequences.
Absolutely. We're talking energy shortages, economic instability, fears of nuclear escalation. This shit's got tentacles reaching all over the world.
Well, on that cheery note, let's pick this back up next week. We'll delve deeper into the international response to this clusterfuck and try to figure out what the hell Putin's endgame might be. Don't touch that dial, folks. See ya next week. So you want to talk about global consequences? Moldova, this tiny country right next to Ukraine. It's stuck in a goddamn nightmare. Russian missiles flying over their heads. Their power grid's overloaded because they're helping out their Ukrainian neighbors. They're constantly worried about getting dragged into this shitstorm.
Talk about being caught in crossfire.
Yeah.
It's like Putin's playing a game of fuck you with the entire region.
Yeah.
Don't forget about that incident in Poland where a missile landed and killed 2 people. For a minute there, it looked like World War III was about to kick off.
Yeah, that was a close one. Turned out it was probably a Ukrainian air defense missile that went off course. But it just shows how quickly this shit can escalate. One wrong move, a miscalculation, and we're all fucked.
So everyone's on edge, the world economy is tanking, and Putin's over there chuckling to himself. What a goddamn psychopath. But let's talk about the international response. How has the rest of the world reacted to this shit show?
They're pretty pissed off. The UN said they were deeply shocked. The EU called the strikes barbaric, and NATO labeled them horrific and indiscriminate. Even the European Parliament voted to designate Russia as a state sponsor of terrorism.
State sponsor of terrorism. Sounds serious. What does that even mean?
It means they're putting Russia in the same category as groups like Al-Qaeda and ISIS. It comes with a whole bunch of sanctions and diplomatic consequences. They're trying to isolate Russia on the world stage, make it clear that this kind of behavior won't be tolerated.
So Putin's become a global pariah. But does he even give a shit?
Hard to say. He's got his propaganda machine churning out all sorts of bullshit
Okay.
about how Russia is the victim and they're just defending themselves against NATO aggression. It's laughable, but some people actually buy it.
Yeah, those brainwashed idiots. Let's be real. Putin's the aggressor here. He's the one who invaded a sovereign country and started bombing the shit out of civilian targets.
Yeah.
No amount of propaganda can spin that.
You're right about that, but here's the thing. Some analysts believe that Putin's actually playing a longer game here, this whole shock and awe campaign. It's all about weakening Europe's support for Ukraine.
Hold on. How the hell does blowing up Ukrainian hospitals weaken European support? If anything, it makes them more pissed off and willing to help.
Think about it. Europe relies heavily on Russian energy. They're already feeling the pinch from sanctions and reduced gas flow. What happens when Ukraine's power grid is so fucked that they need to start drawing power from Europe?
Ah, shit. That puts a strain on their own resources, especially with winter coming. So Putin's trying to hold Europe hostage. You want to help Ukraine? Fine, but it'll cost you.
That's the cynical take, yeah.
Yeah.
But remember, we're talking about Putin here. Cynicism is kind of his brand.
So what happens if this fucked up plan of his actually works? Europe buckles under the pressure, they cut back on aid to Ukraine, Putin waltzes in and takes over. Is that the endgame?
He'd definitely be in a stronger position. But it's not that simple. Ukraine has proven to be a much tougher nut to crack than he anticipated. Those dudes are fighting like cornered badgers. They're not going down without a fight.
Yeah, they've got balls of steel. Plus, even if Europe backs off a bit, the U.S. is still a major player here. They've been pouring billions into Ukraine. They're not showing any signs of letting up.
Exactly. And let's not forget the wild card in all of this. China. They've been playing both sides, offering some support to Russia, while also trying to maintain good relations with the West. Who the hell knows what they're up to?
Man, this is a goddamn geopolitical clusterfuck.
Rawr.
It's enough to make your head spin. But let's focus on Ukraine for a minute. How the hell are they managing to keep their shit together in the face of this relentless assault?
Honestly, it's remarkable. Despite all the death and destruction, they've shown incredible resilience and resourcefulness. They've been patching up their power grid with duct tape and prayers, literally working around the clock to restore essential services.
Those engineers are goddamn heroes. Talk about working under pressure.
No kidding. International aid has played a huge role, too. Organizations like the UN and the EU. They've been providing generators, repair kits, other critical supplies to help keep things running.
So there's actually some good news in all of this. It's not all doom and gloom.
There are definitely glimmers of hope. It's a testament to the human spirit, you know. Even in the darkest of times, people find a way to survive and even thrive. But let's be real, it's still a goddamn nightmare over there.
Well, speaking of nightmares, let's talk about the legal ramifications of all this.
Yeah.
We keep throwing around terms like war crimes. But is anyone actually holding Putin accountable for this shit?
That's where the International Criminal Court, ICC, comes in. They've been investigating war crimes in Ukraine since 2014, and they've recently stepped up their efforts in light of Russia's escalated attacks on civilian infrastructure.
So what are they doing about it? Are they just sitting around in The Hague, sipping tea and writing strongly worded letters?
Nah. Not exactly. In March 2024, they issued arrest warrants for two high-ranking Russian military officials, Sergei Kobylosh, the commander of the Russian Aerospace Forces, and Viktor Sokolov, the commander of the Black Sea Fleet.
Wait, the guys responsible for the missile attacks, right?
Bingo. The ICC is accusing them of war crimes and crimes against humanity, specifically targeting civilian infrastructure and causing excessive harm to civilians.
So is Putin next? Is he going to end up in The Hague wearing an orange jumpsuit, facing a bunch of stern-looking judges?
That's the million-dollar question. They've indicted Sergei Shoigu, the former Minister of Defense, and Valery Gerasimov, the head of the General Staff of the Armed Forces, in June 2024. These are the highest-ranking Russian officials to be indicted so far.
And so they're actually going after the big dogs. But let's be real, there's no way Putin's going to hand them over, right?
Not a chance in hell. But these indictments send a clear message. The world is watching. Those responsible for these atrocities will be held accountable, one way or another.
That's at least a little bit reassuring. So after this deep dive into the missile mayhem, what's your take on Putin's strategy? Is he a strategic genius, a desperate asshole, or just a plain old war criminal?
Well, I think we've seen enough evidence to conclude that he's definitely a war criminal. As for strategic genius versus desperate asshole, it's probably a bit of both.
Yeah, I can see that. He's clearly got some long-term goals, but his tactics are often brutal and short-sighted.
Right. He seems to be operating under the assumption that he can simply outlast Ukraine in the West, that he can grind them down through sheer force of will.
But that strategy seems to be backfiring. Ukraine is more determined than ever, and international support is solidifying. The more atrocities he commits, the less likely he is to achieve his goals. It's a classic case of winning the battle but losing the war.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, from Putin's twisted logic to the international response, the economic fallout, and Ukraine's remarkable resilience. Any final thoughts before we wrap things up?
Just this. The situation in Ukraine is a tragedy for everyone involved. It's a reminder of the human cost of war, and it underscores the importance of diplomacy and peaceful conflict resolution.
Couldn't agree more. And a reminder that this shit's not happening in a vacuum. It's got ripple effects all over the world.
Absolutely. It's a stark reminder that we live in a deeply interconnected world, and the actions of one asshole with a nuclear arsenal can have far-reaching consequences for all of us.
Depressing but true. So what does the future hold for this whole mess? Any chance of a peaceful resolution?
Man, I wish I had a crystal ball for that one. It's tough to say. Putin doesn't exactly have a track record of backing down, and Ukraine's not going to roll over and play dead.
So we're stuck in this stalemate.
For now, yeah. But things are always changing. Who knows what tomorrow will bring? Maybe there's a breakthrough in negotiations. Maybe Putin finally gets a clue and realizes this whole war is a colossal mistake. Maybe aliens invade, and we all have to band together to fight a common enemy.
Okay, that last one's a bit far-fetched. Even for this shit show.
Hey, you never know. Stranger things have happened.
True that. But in all seriousness, what can we, the average folks, do about this, besides doom-scrolling and feeling helpless?
Well, for starters, we can stay informed. Educate ourselves about the conflict, the history, the different perspectives. The more we know, the better equipped we are to call out bullshit propaganda and support meaningful action.
Makes sense.
We can also support organizations that are providing humanitarian aid to Ukraine. They need all the help they can get, especially with winter coming.
And of course, we can always hit up our elected officials, let them know how we feel about this whole mess.
Yeah.
Pressure them to take a stand, to hold Russia accountable, to do everything in their power to end this conflict peacefully.
Exactly. We might feel powerless as individuals, but collectively we can make a difference.
All right, folks, that about wraps up our deep dive into this missile mayhem. It's been a wild ride full of twists and turns and explosions and global outrage.
And it's a story that's still being written. So stay tuned, stay informed, and stay hopeful. And in the meantime, let's all raise a glass to the Ukrainian people. They're facing unimaginable hardships, but their resilience and determination are truly inspiring.
Cheers to that.
And fuck Putin.
Here.
Okay, so we've talked about all the global bullshit, the international response, the legal headaches Putin's racking up. But let's get back to the missiles themselves. We know Putin's an asshole. But is there any method to this madness, or is he just firing these things off like a goddamn monkey with a rocket launcher?
I mean, there's definitely a pattern here. He's not just targeting random shit. If you look at those Wikipedia excerpts, you can see he's focusing on critical infrastructure, power grids, transportation hubs, communication networks, the stuff that keeps Ukraine running.
So it's not just about terrorizing civilians. It's about breaking their ability to fight back.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about the dams? What the fuck is the point of blowing up a dam?
Well, the Kakhovka Dam was a bit different. It was a major source of water for Crimea, which Russia stole back in 2014.
Right.
So by destroying the dam, Putin created a humanitarian crisis, flooded a huge area, and cut off the water supply of Crimea. It was a classic. If I can't have it, no one can move.
Jesus Christ. Talk about cutting off your nose to spite your face. But, okay, besides the obvious death and destruction, what are the long-term consequences of these attacks?
The consequences are massive. Ukraine's economy is fucked. Their infrastructure is in ruins. They're facing a humanitarian crisis. And it goes beyond Ukraine. The whole region is destabilized. The global economy is taking a hit. And there's a real risk of this shit spreading to other countries.
So is Ukraine fucked, or can they come back from this?
It's hard to say, man. I mean, they've got amazing resilience and a lot of international support. And they're definitely putting up a hell of a fight. But the damage is really bad. The road to recovery will be long and painful.
Makes you wonder what's going on in Putin's head. Does he really think he can win this war? Or is he just digging himself deeper into this hole?
It's a good question. It's like he's living in his own little world, surrounded by yes men who tell him what he wants to hear. He underestimated Ukraine, overestimated his own military, and totally misjudged how the world would react. Now he's stuck in this mess with no easy way out.
So what can we do? Do we just sit here and watch this shit unfold?
Yeah.
Or is there something we can actually do to stop this?
Well, there's no easy answer. But we can keep supporting Ukraine, diplomatically, financially, militarily, and pressure Russia to end this war. We can hold Putin accountable for his crimes. And we can work toward a peaceful solution.
That's a lot.
Right.
But yeah, we got to try. If we don't, then we're no better than the assholes who started this whole thing.
Couldn't agree more.
All right, folks, that wraps up our deep dive into the missile mayhem. This whole Russia-Ukraine thing is fucked up and complicated.
Yeah.
But it's important to stay informed, stay engaged, and never give up hope for a better future.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And as always,
Fuck Putin.
fuck Putin.